Sniper Elite Resistance just came out today, and as someone who's never played a Sniper Elite game before, I went into this game with a high amount of curiosity because it's a franchise that pumps out new releases pretty frequently in the grand scope of modern day game development, but I never hear that much online discourse about them, so I've always wondered how good they actually are. But since I now take it upon myself to review as many new games as I can, I finally had a reason to try Sniper Elite, and that's what I've been doing today. I've been playing the newest game for hours, which means I have a lot of thoughts that I want to share with you. And also, sorry for the more minimal intro. If you're new to this channel, you typically see me in person, but I'm a bit under the weather today, and I didn't want to set up my camera, but still, the reviews mustn't stop. So I'm going to get into it. I'm going to show you some raw gameplay and share my thoughts. But first, once again, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. I talk about new video games all the time. I do day one reviews very, very often, just like this, but I do other video game discussions as well. I just love sharing my passion of video games, and I hope you join me.
Der Oberst war außer sich und hat ihn für den Rest der Woche Wachdienst im General.
So first off, this is a first impressions review. I've completed the first handful of missions in the campaign, but I have not completed the story, and I haven't tested any of the multiplayer yet, so just keep that in mind as we continue on with this review. And also, this video will be spoiler free. Like I said, I have a decent chunk carved out of the campaign, but all of the gameplay that you're seeing is from the first two missions. But anyway, Sniper Elite is a franchise that has piqued my curiosity over the years now, since Sniper Elite 3 first came out for the PS4 years ago. It's a franchise I always wanted to try out, but just never did until now. And I gotta say, after spending the day with Sniper Elite Resistance, half of my brain understands why this franchise is a mainstay in the AA gaming scene, but the other half of my brain is left disappointed, if I'm being completely honest with you. And I actually want to start off with some of my criticisms of the game, because overall, I do want to end this review on a positive note. But Sniper Elite Resistance is a stealth-driven, open area, sandbox-esque third-person shooter. Each level has you in a completely different war zone playground with a new handful of objectives to complete in the order you want with a relative amount of freedom. And as you explore each level, you'll find different paths to get to your objectives and oftentimes a few different ways to go about completing that objective. Again, it's very sandboxy in a lot of ways, but the main reason why I'm feeling a little bit disappointed with the game is because, in my opinion, it seems to be a little too basic in its gameplay design. It seems a little too simple, like it's lacking any unique ingredient to make it stand out from all the other games in this third-person stealth subgenre. Like, for example, I haven't played them, but I've been told by everyone and their grandmother that the Hitman games are fantastic. And from what I've seen of them, they do look fun as hell, and the way the levels are designed and the various locations and the disguises you get to wear make those seem to, again, really stand out and stand tall against its peers. Meanwhile, Metal Gear Solid, for example, has the distinct characteristic of being made by Hideo Kojima and all the great weird shit that brings. It's a serious franchise with a serious tone and some great storytelling, but at the same time, you can wear chicken hats and send people away on rocket balloons and force them to be your employees. I guess the whole point I'm trying to make is that in this subgenre, or really any subgenre, you need to have something unique about you to make you stand out from others, whether it be in the writing, in the story, or a distinct gameplay feature. And again, in my experience so far from playing this game just today, Sniper Elite Resistance doesn't seem to have that. It's just plain. It's basic as hell. It's like the template version of this subgenre. It's the piece of white bread before it's used to make a sandwich. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. The gameplay is solid, and it gets the job done, and if you liked the other Sniper Elite games, or hell, even if you just like basic third-person shooters, which nothing wrong with that, by the way, but if you're a fan of those, you might like what's here in this game. It's just, again, I'm not trying to sound like a broken record, but the core gameplay, the level design, everything is, again, pretty basic. Basic shooting, basic stealth, basic objectives, with basic ways of doing them. There's not much here in terms of surprise or originality, and that's unfortunately my biggest takeaway with the game so far. Even after playing it for hours, I feel like I gained nothing. I feel like I experienced nothing new from the other games that I've played. I feel like I run the risk of forgetting every single thing about this game by the time I wake up tomorrow morning, and the story doesn't help save it either. Actually, quite the opposite. The narrative so far is bland and generic. The main character that you play as is basically a cliche, a generic World War II tough guy. But anyway, enough with my annoyances and the bad shit I didn't like about this game. Let's talk about some of the things I actually did enjoy about Sniper Elite Resistance so far. I know I just talked a lot about how this game, to me, feels very plain and a little too simple, but half of my brain understands the appeal of that. Oftentimes, my brain doesn't want some elaborate game or a game with too much going on in terms of its mechanics or its story. More often than not, actually, I crave games that require just enough of my brain power to make me feel like I'm accomplishing something without feeling the need to perch up in my seat and start sweating profusely. Actually, the last game I reviewed just a couple days ago, Orcs Must Die Death Trap, scratched that exact itch for me. And this game might do that for you. I love games like that. And if you also like games like that, there's a chance that this will be that game for you, even though it didn't click with me, because this game definitely has enough going on for it that I can see why people who love this franchise love it, and why potential newcomers might like it a lot more than myself. For example, this game can actually be quite difficult, which I appreciate. Too often, I find that games with stealth are way too easy, to the point that stealth just becomes boring, because you know you'll have a 9 out of 10 time chance of succeeding no matter what you do. That is definitely not the case here. You gotta be on your toes in this game, and being stealthy actually matters. If you screw up and you get spotted, it's not gonna be an easy situation to get out of. I died a lot in this game, on the standard difficulty too, by the way. Enemies can be pretty aggressive with good accuracy, but it never feels unfair or unfun. It just encouraged me to get better and to try different techniques. But I also appreciate that this game is not a stealth only game. There is an emphasis on stealth and sniping, obviously, but most of the time, if you want to run and gun and use your machine guns and just lob grenades everywhere, you can. It'll be a little more difficult and you'll probably die a lot, but the game doesn't punish you for wanting to play that way, which I love. I also love the setting. I know that's a broad praise, but I'm a huge fan of World War II games that take place specifically on the European front. I love the visual of warplanes and tanks on wide open green fields, and a lot of cobblestone and the architecture and windmills and stuff like that. It's my preferred setting for a war game, actually, but anyway, like I said, I'm completely new to this franchise, but I'm really curious what veteran Sniper Elite fans think of this game. Does it push the franchise forward? Are you happy with it? Or does it feel like a game made of reused assets from the last release? Again, I have not played it, but it's also worth mentioning that this game does have some multiplayer aspects to it that sound really cool, by the way. It seems to have your standard multiplayer game modes. I checked it out. It has free-for-all, it has team deathmatch, it has a squad-based game mode, but it also has a game mode where it looks like you're sniping against the enemy team, which makes sense for a game like Sniper Elite. That sounds cool. Again, I have not played it though. It also has a different online game mode where it seems to pit you one-on-one against another player. Like an enemy player can infiltrate your campaign and try and kill you, or you can do the same to another player. That sounds dope as hell. I have not played it yet, but I plan to after I upload this review, and who knows, maybe that'll completely change my opinion on the game. But depending on how this video performs, depending on how much I actually enjoy those multiplayer aspects, I will make a follow-up review to this video. So look forward to that. And once again, I'm curious, have you played this game yet? If you have, let me know what you're thinking about it in the comments down below. And if you haven't, let me know, do you plan to, or is it a game that you're gonna skip entirely? Either way, I look forward to hearing from you in the comments down below. Once again, consider subscribing if you haven't already, and yeah, just thank you for watching, especially if you watched this far.